good afternoon. I'm Dr. Todd Royce with Chiropractic First and Rhino Fitness and Wellness. Super glad you've joined me today, talking about a very critical, important thing, diabetes. Now we're going to make a distinction. The purpose of this talk is primarily diabetes type 2. Type 1 is insulin-dependent diabetes, which means you're not always necessarily born with it, but your immune system attacked the cells of your pancreas, called your islets of Langerhans, that produce insulin, so you are not producing insulin. That's a totally different category. Today we're talking about diabetes type 2, which used to be known as adult onset diabetes, but we don't call it that anymore totally for reasons I'll cover in a moment. Diabetes is one of the most common presentations to a physician's office because it is rampant and more people are dealing with it. It's one of the things that we see clinically here in the office. It affects everything in people's lives. So without further ado about that, talk about who has it and what's happening with it. Over 70 million people in the United States are diagnosed with it currently. 1 in 3 children right now who are born today will have diabetes in their lifetime. 1 in 3. 25% of the people who have it don't even know they have it. They need blood tests and other tests in order to determine whether they have it. 1.9 million new cases a year will be diagnosed. So nearly all cases of it, of type 2 anyway, are treatable and even, dare I say, curable. What do I mean by curable? It means you don't have it anymore. How do I know that? Because I see it every single day. So there's no symptoms of it in the early stages. So what are the symptoms of it? Number one, when you do finally have it, increased thirst is very common from that. Increased urination, fatigue, vision problems, frequent prescription changes due to diabetic neuropathy. Your eyes are the lamp to your body, as Jesus said. That lamp, we can see in your eyes, we see a direct connection to nerve tissue. It's the only place we see live nerve tissue. So the eyes start to change very quickly. The eyes are one of the most powerful parts of our nervous systems, of course. And so when people have diabetic neuropathy, as their nervous system starts to get sick from the diabetic process that is not controlled or affected by drugs, by the way, then the eyesight starts to go, one of the first things. Poor healing, like poor wound healing. A person who's not diabetic will get a cut and their wound will heal in 2 or 3 days. A person who is will heal much more slowly. Edema, which is swelling, especially around the ankles, as the body's circulation just can't keep up with that problem. Neuropathy, as I mentioned before. So common long-term complications from diabetes: blindness, heart disease, strokes, kidney failure. Dialysis costs $21,000 a month, interestingly. Can also affect the parts of the nervous system that control the blood pressure, heart rate, digestion, and even sexual function. Sexual dysfunction is very common with diabetes. Nerve damage and neuropathy. What happens is the nerve cells require nutrients, and diabetes is a problem with nutrient delivery. Initially, our body secretes a lot more insulin in order to keep up with too much sugar and not processing our sugar quickly enough. And so the nerve cells aren't getting nutrients, so the nerve cells start to die off. Very big problem. So birth defects are more common in babies born to women with diabetes for the same reasons. Impotence, as I mentioned. Amputations, as you may notice up on the screen right now. All the tissue here, this is what diabetic neuropathy is. All the tissue is very darkened. The tissue is dying off. As you may see on the screen right there, you might not be able to read it, it says yes. The reason that says yes is because that's the foot they're going to amputate. Everyone who lives long enough with diabetes is going to have limbs amputated or not functioning well at the very least. The reason that I say they don't live that long is because they don't always, because the tissues of the whole body are dying off. It's just that the extremities, because they're extreme, they're far away from the heart, they start to die off first, and far away from the central nervous system, they start to die off first. So people get amputations with that, which brings up, we had a question or sort of a comment earlier about diabetes type 3. A lot of people have not heard of that. People are calling Alzheimer's, and Jen was in one of our talks last week, people are talking about Alzheimer's as diabetes type 3 because it is a blood sugar regulation issue, and because neuropathy, the brain starts to die off just like the foot and other things. So Alzheimer's is what some authors are calling diabetes type 3. If you want to keep your body, you want to keep your nervous system, and you want to save money, the cost of diabetes, a man or a woman diagnosed with type 2 diabetes at age 50 is $172,000. If you want to save those things, follow my advice well. One of the things that just breaks my heart is to see how many people, they're living with it, but because so many people around them have it, they think it's normal. It's not normal. It's a normal adaptation to a very abnormal lifestyle. So because so many people have it, they just think it's okay. If you're diagnosed at 30, the lifetime cost will be $305,000 on average. So diabetes and cancer, according to a study from the Journal of the American Medical Association, the largest medical journal in the world, a study of more than 1 million South Koreans suggests that diabetes can raise the risk of developing and dying from several types of cancer. The highest risk for developing cancer and dying from it were found in people with the highest blood sugar levels. So the worse the problem is, the more likely you are to get cancer and these other conditions. So participants with diabetes were roughly 30% more likely than those without to develop and even die from cancer. So as I said earlier, we used to call diabetes type 2 adult onset diabetes, but we're finding children as young as 5 right now, 5 years old, diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And I don't know how well you can see the screen, but this is the standard American diet. We're seeing these kids just wolfing down massive, massive calories. I talked on a show last week about people who are obese. This is no judgment on you. We all have our challenges, but people who are obese, they're actually starving. They are starving. Their bodies are starving for nutrients. They have an excess of calories, but they're starving for nutrients, which is why so many of them continue to eat. They're never going to find the right nutrients in Mountain Dew and Doritos. Your body's never going to find it in there. So you'll keep eating and eating and eating, struggling to get those nutrients. Drugs for this, metformin, glucophage. Contraindications for metformin include patients with type 1 diabetes, those at risk for cardiovascular disease. Risks are impaired liver and kidney function, causing lactic acid buildup in the blood, which can be fatal. I so often hear people say, oh, I have type 2 diabetes, but it's under control. What they mean by that is they're taking medications. You listen to people who go to support groups and they have potlucks. We're having a potluck here about healthy, nutritious food tomorrow night. If you're a rhino, please come and join us. But what they say is, oh, I can eat whatever I want. I just up my meds. That is absolutely not true, and it's a very, very dangerous thought. This drug can increase your chances of dying from cardiovascular problems by 2.5 times. So a study at Wake Forest University showed that the risk of heart failure in patients taking diabetes drugs can be up to 100% higher than in those who forego the drugs. Also, more than 65% of people with diabetes eventually die of heart disease, from Wake Forest University. So insulin side effects, taking insulin. Now, sometimes you've got to do this. If you either have type 1 diabetes or if you need it as a crutch to get over this initially, then by all means, do what you need to do to survive. But it's just survival. Like the guy in that movie, I think it was called 72 Hours, who had to cut off his foot in order to escape and lose his foot because his foot was stuck in a rock. Well, he had to do what he had to do, but it doesn't mean he's going to go cut his other foot off. He's going to learn from his mistake. So side effects. So people have all sorts of side effects from this insulin. You've got to pay the piper eventually. So what do we do when we have this? I have seen many, many, many people be totally rid of their diabetes, type 2. Many, many people. And this is how they do it. Over the years, I've seen lots of people. This is before we had a concise system to teach people just simple things that I've told people to change, whether just adjustments or just nutrition or just exercise. Now we have a comprehensive system. But wherever you are, no matter how good you are, you can improve on at least one of these things. So even if diabetes is not a risk for you, please stay tuned and you're going to learn how to increase your health. So the solution is 3 pillars. All great things come in threes, just like Sammy the Red Rocker, who's going to sing our Rhino song for us one of these days. 3-lock box, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. The tetrahedron, the triangular shaped structure, is the most stable structure in the universe. Well, anyway, the side of it is a triangle. All great things come in threes. So there's the mental, emotional, spiritual, there's the metabolic and the nutrients, and there's the structure and the power. I sometimes rotate this pyramid because they're all critical. If your spine is not healthy, you have no chance of having a healthy metabolic system. If your power is off because you have subluxation in your nervous system, go see your chiropractor. Make sure you're getting adjusted. Make sure they're measuring the correction. Critical piece. It's not enough to go say, all right, my chiropractor popped some joints and now my back feels better. That does not mean your nervous system is healing. So we have to actually measure your correction. How many of you would like to have a phone conversation where it's all staticky all the time? Lately, something's wrong between my wife's cell phone and me, and I can't always hear everything she's saying. Some of you might like that. I don't like it very much because she has very valuable things to say. So similarly, with your body, if your nervous system is not in proper, normal communication, if your brain can't communicate properly with your heart and your lungs and your sugar regulation system, you're going to be sick no matter what. So that's why we need to make sure that our structure is improving. So we want 5-bar communication from brain to body and body to brain. If you're not getting adjusted, you're not having 5-bar communication. So power, other than just power over the nervous system, we want to be able to produce power, strength in our body, the ability to move things quickly over time. Whether you just want to be able to pick up the cat food when you go shopping, right? I know a story of a geriatric specialist MD who said, oh, this woman can't deadlift. Now, for those of you who don't know, deadlift just means to pick up something off the floor and bring it up to waist level with your arms hanging straight down. He said, oh no, she's not safe to deadlift. And this particular coach, a CrossFit coach, said to this MD, well, she has to. She's going to pick up the cat food. And so the MD says, well, it's not safe for her. And the trainer says, the coach says, the difference is I want to teach her to do it safely and you don't. So anyway, no matter what, you may not want to be able to squat clean 350 pounds. That may not be your goal. You might not want to bench press 400 pounds. That might not be a goal either. However, you are going to want to get up off the toilet. You probably want to teach your kids to fish and to fish, your kids and your grandkids to fish. You may want to play golf till you're 100 years old. So I just heard a story today. A patient of mine, Josh, was telling me that he works with this guy who's over 70 years old who has more energy than anyone around him. He gets down on his knees, he's getting up, he's like, I'm never going to retire, I feel amazing. That's how it should be till 120 years old. We've accepted too little in this world. You may remember Deuteronomy 34. Wait a minute. I've confused my scriptures. The Bible records that Moses was 120 years old the day he died, and his eyesight was strong and his body was strong. 120 years old. And he didn't have Doritos back in the day. So the mental, emotional, spiritual side, what you think is so powerful over your health. It is so powerful over your health. One of the biggest things that I do in people's lives is simply encouraging them as I'm teaching them wellness lifestyles, encouraging them and telling them they've got this. That's one of the most important things that I do. Stress destroys us. Stress destroys us, and we all have it. One of the things that we coach in our Rhino program is specific meditations, nothing abnormally spiritual or anything like that, just meditations on relaxing our nervous system, calming down and bringing healing. We actually measure stress with our heart rate variability test, our autonomic activity diagram that we measure. You need to know where you are on this autonomic activity diagram because you can hide it from yourself, but you can't hide it from the machine that actually measures your skin temperature, your heart rate variability. That measures how much stress you're under right now in this moment. We should be living in peace, but many of us are destroying our bodies like acid by having stress every day in our lives. So the third is the nutrients and the metabolic. So first off, we need to be putting the right nutrients into our bodies. Secondly, metabolic means this: we need to condition our engines in our bodies to be able to use our fuel efficiently. So you may be eating the greatest organic, homegrown, most amazing food in the world, but if you're not exercising correctly, then you are not conditioning multiple different metabolic systems in your body. So you need to be exercising correctly to be able to keep those systems tuned up and super, super healthy. So if you don't know if you are, come see our head coach Abby, set up an assessment and she'll tell you if you are. So takeaways from this. So here's the main things that we need to know. Number one is don't get diabetes. And if it's type 2, guess who's in control? That's right. You are in control if you're getting diabetes or not. It's no judgment no matter where you come from. It doesn't matter where you come from. It just matters where you're going. You can get rid of this, so don't get it in the first place. If you have it, fix it. Our 3 pillars. Okay, this is the movie line for the day. I haven't done movie lines for a while. And the first person to comment on this movie line to get it right, okay, gets a $5 gift certificate to Roots Juice, which will get you a juice. It's amazing stuff. So, join my 8-week program, Rex Kwon Do. This is paraphrasing it, but he says he's wearing big parachute pants that are American flag, and he says, do you think anyone wants to take a roundhouse kick to the face while I'm wearing these bad boys? Forget about it. So Rex Kwon Do, join my 8-week program. So who knows what movie that is? It's a good one. So if you have it, fix it. Correct your spine, your stress, and your food. If you correct your spine, your stress, and your food, you're going to be a long ways to going toward getting rid of diabetes out of your life and having freedom. Now, I used to read a thing that said something like, I read this on a magnet on a fridge when I was a kid, and I've never forgotten it. It said, a moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips. I don't like negativity like that. I like looking at things for positive sake. A little discipline today will pay you dividends massively in the future. There's no shortcut to good health, but if you do run with endurance the race that is set before us, you will leave an amazing legacy of health and blessing to your next generation, which is one of the things we most highly value here. So I thank you for listening here today. I hope I've been a blessing to you, and I hope I've taught you to be a blessing to your family and to those who come after you. So go out and take amazing care of yourself. Have a blessed afternoon. Thanks for joining me today.